My dear brothers and sisters, today we are also remembering the memorial of Saint Callistus. And Saint Callistus was the Holy Father in Rome when he was a martyr. But he's also remembered because when you visit the catacombs, his are one of the most famous ones. And as you know then, he was the first Holy Father who organized the cemeteries in Rome. So sometimes we have the impression that it's because of whatever income we get from cemeteries that we're able to survive with so many allegations and stuff that go on. And in a way, the dead are helping us to live. We could say that here. But at the same time, we have to remember that we always receive the call to renew our faith. And the Lord, when he talks about generations, he brings back the importance of Catholic education in every generation. Actually, Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, in his encyclical letter about hope, Spe Salvi, he particularly says that every generation is called to renew its faith, its hope, and its charity as well. Every generation. We might be living in a generation that, generally speaking, might be failing in this. But nevertheless, we shouldn't get discouraged, because we have certainly the help of our beloved departed through the communion of saints, but we also have the support of our God, of Jesus Christ, who is actually giving us a better sign that was given in the past. The book of Jonah, as we know, talks about the conversion of the Ninevites, almost by Jonah doing almost nothing. He was just sent there. And to his own surprise, he was so afraid, but to his own surprise, the Ninevites did convert. And then the queen of Saba, went to see Solomon, and she was really touched by the wisdom that Solomon spread throughout the whole world at that time. But the Lord, in his humility, is telling his own generation, you're asking for a sign. That is to say, nothing really seems to happen. And this touches us in our daily lives. Sometimes when we get discouraged and we lose hope, it seems that nothing is happening. But the Lord promised a sign that will be greater than that of the Ninevites and that of the queen of the queen of the south, or they call it the queen of south. And what is that sign? Who is that sign? He just says it in a very humble way. There is something greater than Jonah here. There is something greater than Solomon here. Now, I ask you, and I ask myself, do we really pay attention to the sign, the great sign of Jesus Christ in his church, particularly in the real presence, in the Eucharist? We have him until the end of the world. And sometimes we are discouraged, thinking that because our generation, generally speaking, is turning away from God, then there's no hope. Well, my dear brothers and sisters, that is wrong. Because our hope is not based on our generation. Our hope is founded in the great sign that God decided to give us in his Son. And his Son lives within us in the holy sacrament of the altar, and then spreads his presence throughout the whole church. So Ecclesia, church, and Eucharistia. Eucharist. Those are the great signs that we have. And they might not be great manifestations or Hollywood phenomena, but they are real and they are powerful. So let us ask the Lord today to accept his humble needs, just as some in his generation accepted the humble means of himself. When the Sanhedrin asked the Lord, "Are you the Son of the living God?" And when he, as a humble man standing there, said, "I am," he was condemned immediately. But nevertheless, he was a sign. So sometimes we can fall into despair because we would prefer the Lord to give us a great sign of his presence. But the Lord acts in a human way. That's the great challenge of Christianity, that the Lord sent his Son to become a man and to perform ordinary means of salvation, his word, his sacraments, and the church. So, my dear brothers and sisters, there were some within Christ's generation that accepted him, and he was able to build his church with them, starting with the Blessed Mother, then the apostles, the rest of the disciples. Let us ask the Lord to be part of that crowd, to be part of that generation, and then we will be able to pass on the message and the presence of Christ to the future.